I want you to hear me today. God will never interfere with your will. You see, He's given you a gift so powerful, so divine, that no matter what comes your way, you have the freedom to choose your path. But here's the thing. You may be waiting for God to show up in a miraculous way, to step in and make things happen for you. But what you may not realize is that God is waiting on you to choose your future, choose your faith, to choose to believe in His promises. I know life can be hard, but I want you to know this. God's not going to force His will on you, but He will always walk with you as you align your will with His plan. God has given us one of the greatest gifts, the gift of free will. This isn't just some small fleeting thing. This is a divine empowerment. When we think about it, free will is such a powerful concept because it gives us the ability to choose who we are, where we're going, and how we're going to live. It's the freedom to make decisions that shape our lives and determine our destiny. And the beauty of this freedom is that it's completely in your hands. You have the authority to make decisions. No one can take that away from you. You may have been through struggles, hardships, and pain, but no matter where you've been or what you've gone through, you still have the power to choose how you respond and what you're going to do with the life God has given you. Think about this for a moment. God created the universe. He spoke the stars into existence. He designed every detail with divine precision. Yet despite His sovereignty, He chose to give you and me the ability to make decisions. This shows the depth of His love for us. He's not a controlling God who wants to dictate every step we take. No, He's a loving Father who gives us the freedom to walk in His blessings or make choices that might lead us down a difficult path. He respects our will, and He'll never interfere with that. Now, some might wonder, why would God give us such power when He knows we might make mistakes? Why not just step in and tell us what to do every step of the way? But here's the thing. If He did that, we would never truly experience the depth of His love. Love isn't love if it's forced. The most genuine kind of love, the kind that creates deep connection and relationship, is the kind that's chosen. And that's why God gives us free will. It's not about control. It's about relationship. God wants you to choose Him not because He's making you, but because you want to. Free will means you can decide to step into your purpose, or you can walk away from it. You can choose to trust Him, or you can choose to trust your own understanding. And no matter what choice you make, God is there. He will not force His will on you, but He will always guide you when you seek His wisdom. He will help you find your way when you're lost. And He will never leave you, even when you're making mistakes. But the power is in your hands. God is not going to override your decisions. If He did, we wouldn't have the freedom to experience His goodness on a deeper level. It's through our choices that we learn to rely on, trust Him, and understand His way. God has designed your life in a way that you are the one who gets to steer the ship. It's your decisions that create the path in front of you. You might feel like life is out of control, but I want to remind you that you have the power to choose how you're going to respond. You might not be able to control every situation, but you can control your reaction to those situations. Life will throw challenges your way, but how you handle them, how you choose to approach them is entirely up to you. This is where true strength lies. This strength isn't about being able to change every circumstance around you, but about having the ability to choose how you'll react to what's happening in your life. It's about deciding that no matter what, you will walk in faith, you will walk in love, you will walk in hope, and in doing so, you align yourself with God's plan for your life. So when you find yourself at a crossroads and you're waiting for God to tell you exactly what to do, remember, He's already given you the ability to choose. And as you choose to step forward in faith, He will guide you every step of the way. He will never take your free will, but He will bless you as you make choices that reflect His love and purpose. He's already given you the power. The question is, what will you do with it? God is not a dictator, and He does not want to control your life in a way that removes your freedom. He is a loving Father, and love at its core cannot be forced. If God were to force us into obedience or manipulate our decisions, it would no longer be love. The very essence of love is freedom, the freedom to choose to decide. and to act with our own will. God has given us the power to choose freely, to determine our direction, to express our desires, and to make mistakes. He doesn't interfere with our will because He respects us enough to let us make our own choices. This is not an act of neglect, but rather an act of deep love and trust. The nature of God's love is not one that controls or demands. Rather, it's one that nurtures, guides, and empowers. He provides us with the wisdom, guidance, and strength to make decisions that will ultimately lead us to His plan for our lives, but He will never force us onto that path. It's in the free exercise of our will that we get to know Him more deeply. We come to understand His heart, His character, and His intentions by choosing to follow Him. Not because we have to, but because we want to. Now, it's important to understand that God's guidance is always available to us. His wisdom is there for the taking. His love is unconditional, and His grace is infinite. But He will never impose Himself upon you. He will not take over your life and make decisions for you. You might be waiting for God to show up in a grand way, to reveal the next step with clarity and precision. But what we often fail to realize is that God is waiting for us to make the choice, to step out in faith, to trust in His promises, and to align our will with His. He's waiting for us to exercise that free will in a way that invites Him into our decision. When we talk about God not interfering with our will, we're really talking about the power He has given us to choose and the responsibility that comes with it. God trusts us with our own lives. He doesn't demand that we follow a prescribed set of actions, but He offers us His hand, His wisdom, and His grace so that we can make choices that honor Him and bring us closer to the fullness of the life He's designed for us. He will never force us to make those choices. He leaves that up to us. This means that there will be times in life when we have to make difficult decisions, and God won't come down with a booming voice from heaven telling us exactly what to do. There will be moments when we face crossroads, and it feels like we don't have the answers. But it's in those moments that God wants us to trust in Him the most, to believe that He will guide our hearts, and to have faith that He's working behind the scenes. His voice isn't always loud and forceful. It's gentle and still. He wants us to choose with confidence, knowing that He's with us, even when we're unsure of the outcome. This doesn't mean that God is absent when we're making decisions. Quite the opposite. He's very present. He's always near. But He wants us to invite Him into the process. He's not going to barge in and take control, but He will be there, gently nudging us in the right direction, providing signs, opportunities, and divine wisdom when we seek Him. God's involvement in our lives is not about Him taking away our free will, but about us choosing to partner with Him in our decision-making. He's there to lead, guide, and support, but He will not overrule our ability to choose. When we understand that God respects our choices, it gives us a deeper appreciation for the relationship He desires with us. If God were to impose His will on us, we would never truly understand the depth of His love. But because He allows us to choose, we get to experience the fullness of His love and the joy of aligning our will with His. It's in those moments of decision when we step out in faith and trust Him that we come into greater intimacy with Him. It's not about being forced into a life of obedience. It's about willingly choosing to walk with Him, to trust His plan, and to align ourselves with His purposes. God's guidance is always available, but it's up to us to take that first step. When we choose His way, we open the door for Him to lead us into places of blessings, joy, and fulfillment that we could never have imagined. But if we choose our own way, He will honor that choice as well. He will not interfere with our decisions. He will allow us to learn from them, whether they lead us to success or to challenges, because He knows that through every decision we are learning and growing. And in the end, it's not about being perfect in every choice we make. It's about trusting in the one who will never leave us and knowing that even when we stumble, He will help us get back up. God will never force His will on you, but He will always walk with you as you make your choices. He will provide the wisdom, the strength, and the grace to guide you. But the choice is yours. So take heart, because the power to shape your life is in your hand. And as you walk in the freedom that God has given you, you'll find that His plan for your life is greater than anything you could have imagined. He's not interfering with your will, but He's inviting you into a partnership that will transform your life in ways you never thought possible. Choose to walk with Him and watch how He blesses you beyond measure. When we talk about faith, it's important to understand that faith isn't about waiting for God to move first. It's about stepping out in trust, believing that even though we can't see the end of the road, God will make the path clear as we walk it. Faith is an action, a decision we make every day to trust God with our future, our dreams, and our desires. It's not something that is simply given to us. It's something that is built through every choice, every moment of trust, and every act of courage. And when we make decisions based on faith, when we choose to step out and move forward in the face of uncertainty, we invite God into our situation in a very real way. Too often we sit back and wait for God to show us exactly what to do, to give us clear and unmistakable signs before we make any move. But that's not how faith works. God isn't always going to give you the exact blueprint of what's ahead. Instead, He wants to see if you will trust Him enough to take that first step without knowing exactly where it will lead. That's when faith becomes real. When we step out in obedience, even when we don't have all the answers. It's easy to have faith when everything is laid out before you, when the road is clear and the path is easy to follow. But real faith is choosing to trust when you don't know what the outcome will be. It's choosing to take the first step into the unknown because you believe that God will be with you every step of the way. Faith isn't about having all the answers, and it's certainly not about waiting for the perfect moment. There's never going to be a perfect moment. There's never going to be a time when everything is lined up perfectly for you to take the leap of faith. The Bible tells us that faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. This means that faith requires action even when we can't see the full picture. It requires us to step into the unknown, to trust that God is already working behind the scenes, preparing the way even when we can't see it. But here's the beautiful part. As we make the decision to step out in faith, even when we don't have all the answers, God shows up. He doesn't wait for us to have everything figured out before He starts moving. He's not waiting for us to be perfect before He intervenes. He moves when we move. When we step out in faith, when we choose to trust in Him even in our uncertainty, He responds with His presence, His guidance, and His provision. It's in those moments when we don't have all the answers that we experience God in a deeper way, because He is faithful to show up for us when we take that step. But let's also acknowledge that stepping out in faith isn't always easy. It's often scary, it's risky, and it doesn't always make sense in the moment. We live in a world that values certainty and control, and it can feel incredibly unsettling to make decisions when we don't know exactly where they will lead. Yet, this is where our relationship with God deepens the most. When we move forward with faith, we're not relying on our own strength or understanding. We're relying on His guidance, His wisdom, and His power to see us through. And God doesn't disappoint. He has promised that He will never leave us or forsake us, even in our most uncertain moments. Faith is about trusting that God is already ahead of you, even before you make the decision. He's already in your future, preparing the way. So when you choose to step forward, you can rest assured that you're not going alone. God is with you every step of the way, providing the direction you need, opening doors that were once closed, and guiding your heart in ways that only He can. And what happens when we step out in faith is nothing short of miraculous. You may not see the results right away, but over time, as you continue to trust and walk in faith, you will see how God has orchestrated everything perfectly for your good. In fact, when you choose to step out in faith, God is able to work in ways that are beyond what you can imagine. It's like a domino effect. When you move in faith, you create space for God to move in powerful ways. But here's the key. You have to make the choice to step out first. You have to make the decision to act even when everything within you is screaming to stay where it's safe. This is the essence of faith. It's not about waiting for everything to be perfect or for God to show you every detail of the journey ahead. It's about trusting Him enough to take the first step, knowing that He's with you and that He's faithful to guide you as you move forward. This process of faith building through action can be challenging, but it is also incredibly rewarding. As you step out in faith, God will begin to reveal more to you. You'll see how He provides, how He opens doors that seem closed, how He places the right people in your path, and how He leads you to places of fulfillment and joy that you never imagined possible. It's in those moments of action, when you've made the decision to trust Him, that God shows you His incredible faithfulness and His perfect timing. So when it comes to faith, don't wait for God to take the first step for you. Don't wait for Him to lay out every single detail of your future. Take the first step and watch how He moves in your life in ways that will take your breath away. Your willingness to step out and trust Him is the key that unlocks the door to all that He has prepared for you. God has an incredible plan for each of our lives, a plan far greater than anything we could have ever imagined. The beautiful thing is that God's plans are always good. They are full of hope, purpose, and potential. And the thing we have to remember as we navigate life is that God's plans are never about forcing us into a specific mold or dictating every aspect of our journey. He has designed us with unique personalities, desires, and talents. He created us to be individuals who have the ability to make choices and decisions. And when we align our choices with His will, that's when we begin to see His plan unfold in ways that exceed our expectations. But here's where we often struggle. We can't always see the bigger picture. We might not always understand why certain things are happening in our lives. There are seasons where we wonder why things aren't going the way we hoped. We might experience pain, disappointment, or frustration, and we can easily start to question whether God's plan is really greater than our own. It's in those moments of uncertainty that we have to remind ourselves that God's plan is always bigger and better than what we can imagine. God's plans are not just for a future event or a distant promise. They are happening right now in the present moment, and they are unfolding as we walk by faith. Our choices play a vital role in this process. God will never force His plans upon us, but He invites us to participate in them by choosing to trust Him. When we choose to align our desires with His will, we start to see how He opens doors, guides our steps, and leads us down paths that are far better than what we could have planned on our own. It's not about our will being overridden, but rather our will being transformed to reflect God's higher purpose for us. This transformation happens when we allow God to take the lead in our life. When we surrender our own understanding and lean on His wisdom, we begin to experience His plan for us in ways we never imagined. It's in those moments of surrender, when we let go of control and trust that He knows what's best, that God is able to work miracles. We might not always understand the why behind every challenge we face, but we can trust that God is using those challenges to mold us, shape us, and draw us closer to His perfect plan. And while the road may not always be smooth or easy, we can have the confidence that every step we take with Him will ultimately lead us to something greater. We often talk about God's plans as if they are something far off in the future. But the truth is, His plans are being worked out in the here and now. When we choose to walk with Him, when we choose to put our trust in His promises, we begin to see His plan unfold right before our eyes. There is no limit to what God can do in your life when you choose to align your will with His. His plan is not just a destination. It's a journey that is full of divine encounters, lessons, and experiences that will shape you into the person He created you to be. God's plans are always greater than our own because they are full of purpose and destiny. His plan for your life doesn't just touch you. It impacts everyone around you. When you align your will with His, you become a part of a bigger story, His story. Your choices matter because they are part of the greater work that He is doing in this world. And when you choose to trust Him, when you choose to walk in faith, you become a vessel for His love, His wisdom, and His grace to flow through. When we try to force our own plans, when we hold on too tightly to our own desires, we can miss out on the incredible blessings God has waiting for us. Our plans, though well-intentioned, often fall short of what God has in store for us. But when we let go and trust His plan, we find that His way is always better than anything we could have ever imagined. This doesn't mean we won't face challenges or setbacks along the way. It does mean that we can trust that God is using every part of our journey to bring us closer to His divine purpose. The truth is, God has already paved the way for your future. His plans are already in motion. You might not see the full picture yet, but as you step out in faith, as you choose to trust Him with your decisions, you will begin to see how He is working in your life. And the more you align yourself with His plan, the more you will experience His goodness, His blessings, and His perfect timing. The key is to trust Him with every step of the journey, knowing that He is leading you to a place of purpose, fulfillment, and joy that is far beyond your imagination. God's plans are not limited by our own understanding. His plans go beyond what we can see or even comprehend. But when we choose to trust Him, we open the door for Him to work in ways that are beyond our wildest dreams. His plans will always exceed our own. His love is greater than anything we can ever imagine. And His desire for us to walk in His plan is rooted in His infinite wisdom and perfect timing. So when you face a crossroad, when you feel uncertain about the future, remember this: God's plan is greater than your own. His timing is perfect, and His provision is unmatched. And as you choose to trust Him, you'll begin to see how He is working all things together for your good. When we think about aligning our will with God's will, it's important to remember that it's not a one-time decision, but a daily choice. Every single day, we are given the opportunity to align our desires, our hopes, and our dreams with His divine purpose for our lives. This alignment is a process that requires us to continually surrender our own will and our own plans to Him, trusting that His way is the best way, even when it doesn't make sense to us in the moment. It's not about forcing our own desires into God's plan, but allowing our hearts to be shaped and transformed to desire what He desires. It's about becoming more like Him, aligning our thoughts, our actions, and our choices with the truth of His Word, and trusting that when we do, we will experience His blessings in ways we could never have imagined. Aligning our will with God's will doesn't mean we won't have our own desires or dreams. God created us with unique personalities, gifts, and ambitions. He gave us passions, dreams, and visions for our future. But the key to true fulfillment and purpose lies in understanding that our desires should always be submitted to His greater purpose for our lives. When we align our will with His, we invite Him into our decision-making process. And that's when we begin to see His perfect plan unfold. God doesn't ask us to suppress our desire. He asks us to trust Him with them, to bring them before Him and say, "Lord, not my will, but yours be done." It's in this surrender, in this act of trust, that God can begin to work through us in ways that go beyond what we could ever imagine. There's something beautiful that happens when we align our will with God's will. We experience peace, the peace that surpasses all understanding, the kind of peace that doesn't depend on circumstances or outcomes, but rests in the assurance that we are exactly where God wants us to be. When we surrender our will to His, we stop fighting against what's happening in our lives. We stop trying to control the situation, manipulate the outcome, or force things to go the way we think they should. And in that surrender, we experience a deep sense of peace, knowing that God is in control and that His plan for us is good. It's a peace that comes from trusting that God knows what's best, even when we can't see the full picture. Aligning our will with God's will also requires patience. We live in a world that values instant results and quick fixes. We want things to happen now. And when they don't, it's easy to become frustrated or disheartened. But the truth is that God's timing is always perfect. His plan for our lives is unfolding at exactly the right pace. And He's not in a hurry. His ways are higher than our ways. And His thoughts are higher than our thoughts. When we align ourselves with His will, we trust that He is working behind the scenes even when we don't see it. We trust that He is orchestrating every detail of our lives for His glory and our good, and that in His time, everything will come together perfectly. Patience is a key part of this process as we learn to trust in His timing and wait on Him, knowing that He is never late. Another important aspect of aligning our will with God's will is the willingness to surrender our control. This is one of the hardest parts of the process because it requires us to let go of our own plans, our own understanding, and our own timelines. We all like to feel in control, but the truth is we are not in control of the bigger picture. God is. And when we try to hold on too tightly to our own plans, we limit God's ability to work in our lives. But when we surrender our control to Him, we open ourselves up to a level of freedom and blessing that we can't experience any other way. Surrendering doesn't mean that we don't have any responsibility. It simply means that we trust God to lead us, to guide us, and to empower us to make the right decisions, knowing that He will never lead us astray. As we align our will with God's, we also align ourselves with His purposes. And God's purposes are always about something bigger than ourselves. His plan is not just for our personal happiness or success. His plan is to use us to make a difference in the world around us. When we align our will with His, we become part of something much greater than our individual lives. We become vessels of His love, grace, and truth. And we get to play a role in building His kingdom on earth. This is where true purpose and fulfillment are found. Not in pursuing our own ambitions, but in seeking God's will and allowing Him to use us for His glory. When we seek His will, we find that our lives are filled with meaning because we are participating in a purpose that is eternal and significant. It's also important to remember that aligning our will with God's will doesn't mean that we will always understand everything that happens in our lives. There will be moments of confusion, of uncertainty, and even of pain. But even in those moments, we can trust that God is with us, God in us and working through us. There will be times when the path ahead seems unclear, but we can trust that God is leading us step by step. And as we continue to walk with Him, we will begin to see how each step, each decision, and each moment of surrender brings us closer to the life He has prepared for us. Ultimately, aligning our will with God's is about trust. It's about trusting that His plan for us is good, that He knows what's best, and that He will always lead us in the right direction. It's about trusting that when we let go of our own desires and submit them to Him, we open ourselves up to a life of purpose, peace, and fulfillment that we could never have created on our own. And as we align ourselves with His will, we become more fully who He created us to be. And we experience the fullness of His love, His grace, and His blessings in ways we never thought possible. It's a journey of surrender, of trust, and of knowing that when we give our lives to Him, He will take us places beyond our wildest dreams. When we talk about the freedom of choice that God has given us, we're diving into something incredibly profound. God created us with the gift of free will, a beautiful and powerful gift that distinguishes us from the rest of creation. It is the ability to choose our actions, our responses, and ultimately the direction of our lives. This freedom of choice is a fundamental part of who we are as human beings. But with this incredible gift comes great responsibility. God doesn't make our decisions for us. He doesn't force us to walk a certain path. He doesn't dictate every step we take. Instead, He has given us the ability to choose, and He honors the choices we make, even when they're not aligned with His perfect will. The fact that God gives us this kind of freedom can be both empowering and challenging. On one hand, it means that we have the opportunity to shape our own destiny. We can pursue our dreams, make our own decisions, and live a life that reflects our values, passions, and desires. We're not puppets controlled by strings, but individuals with the ability to think, choose, and act. God has entrusted us with this freedom because He loves us and wants us to experience life in a way that's personal, authentic, and meaningful. On the other hand, this freedom comes with a responsibility. It means that we are accountable for the choices we make. We can choose to follow God's path or to go our own way. We can choose to honor Him with our decisions or to disregard His guidance. This is where many of us struggle because sometimes our desires and our will don't align with what God wants for us. Sometimes the path that God calls us to take doesn't make sense in our limited human understanding. It's in these moments that we are faced with the choice. Do we choose to follow God's will, or do we take matters into our own hands and pursue our own desires? God's respect for our free will is a powerful demonstration of His love. Love cannot be forced or coerced. It must be chosen freely. And so God gives us the space to make our own decisions, to choose how we live and to choose how we respond to Him. He's not a distant, controlling force that manipulates every aspect of our lives. Instead, He's a loving Father who gives us the freedom to choose, even when He knows that some of our choices will lead us down difficult or painful paths. But even when we make mistakes, even when we go off course, God doesn't abandon us. He's always there, ready to guide us back, always willing to show us mercy, grace, and love. One of the most profound aspects of God's freedom is the fact that He never forces Himself upon us. He doesn't push us into relationship with Him. He doesn't demand that we follow Him. Instead, He invites. He extends an invitation to know Him, to walk with Him, to align our will with His. And it's up to us to respond. It's a choice that we have to make every single day. It's a choice to invite God into our lives, to submit our will to His, and to trust that His plans are greater than anything we could come up with on our own. And this invitation is not just a one-time decision. It's an ongoing choice. We must continually choose God, continually choose His ways, and continually trust that His will for us is always the best. When we talk about God's respect for our free will, we're also talking about the reality of living in a fallen world. Sin has distorted our ability to make perfect choices. We are imperfect beings living in an imperfect world, and sometimes our choices lead us into pain, disappointment, and struggle. But here's the beautiful truth. Even in our mistakes, even when we mess up, God never leaves us. His love for us is unshakable, and His grace is sufficient. Even when we choose wrongly, He is there, offering forgiveness, healing, and restoration. God doesn't interfere with our free will, but He is always present, always available to help us make better choices. He gives us His Word, which is a lamp to our feet and a light to our path. He gives us the Holy Spirit, who guides us, comforts us, and empowers us to make decisions that honor God. And while He never forces us to follow His guidance, He's always there, gently nudging us, offering wisdom and providing opportunities for growth. It's also important to remember that our freedom of choice isn't just about the big decisions in life. It's not just about choosing a career or a spouse or a place to live. It's about the everyday choices, the way we respond to people, the way we handle our emotions, the way we treat others, the way we speak, the way we spend our time, and the way we use our resources. Every day we're presented with choices, and in each of those choices we have the opportunity to align our will with God's will or to go our own way. Even in the small, seemingly insignificant decisions, God is inviting us to choose Him, to walk in His love, and to reflect His character to the world around us. One of the most beautiful aspects of this freedom is the fact that it allows us to grow. Growth happens when we make choices, when we learn from our mistakes, and when we experience the consequences of our actions. God doesn't want us to be robots who are programmed to make the right choice every time. He wants us to grow, to mature, and to develop a deeper understanding of His will for our lives. Growth comes from experiencing both the successes and the failures, the joys and the hardships, and learning to trust God through it all. Our choices shape who we are, and as we choose to align our will with His, we become more and more like Him. At the end of the day, God's greatest desire for us is that we choose Him. He wants us to choose to walk with Him, to trust Him, to love Him, and to allow Him to lead us. But He will never force us to make that choice. It's up to us. And every day, we are faced with the opportunity to choose His will over our own. When we choose God's will, we find true freedom. Not the kind of freedom that comes from doing whatever we want, but the freedom that comes from living in alignment with God's purpose for our lives. It's the freedom to be who He created us to be, to experience His love, His peace, and His joy, and to walk in the fullness of the life He has for us. God has given us the gift of free will, and with that gift comes the privilege of choosing Him each and every day. God will never interfere with your will, but He will always guide you with love, wisdom, and grace. The question is, will you allow His divine will to shape your choices, or will you continue to walk in your own understanding? Today, choose faith, choose trust. And remember, when you make the decision to align your will with God's plan, there's no limit to the blessings He'll pour into your life.